Come to give you what you love. It's time to give you what you love. I'ma give you what you love. Give you what you love.
Good morning. Oh, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. It's been that kind of day. I'm Denise Clay Murray. You're listening to The Source on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. And I thank you for joining me today. It's Thursday, which means we're a little closer to Friday, which is always a good thing. I know I'm looking forward to the weekend, and I hope you all are too. But before we get down to that, we have some folks that are going to be coming on the show to share some different kinds of information with you today, and hopefully you'll like it all. We'll start with in the 3 o'clock hour. Um, One thing that I wanted to do when I was asked to fill in was, talk about some of the stuff that, Philly folks might not know about, but it might be good for them to learn about. And one of those things to me is Black entrepreneurs who are doing things in the area of food and beverage. And we're going to have on Sharice McGill. If you've ever been to the Cherry Street Pier, she has the French toast bite stand there, and it's really good. The French toast bites are really very good. And also, she has a new beer that she has produced with the Yards Brewery on Spring Garden Street. And it's actually good because you would think French toast and beer wouldn't necessarily match, but they do in this case. And we'll talk about it. In the 2 o'clock hour, we're going to have a friend of mine from the Twitterverse that I really like in real life. His name is Scott Charles, and he is the head of the trauma support unit at Temple University. And I know I probably didn't get that completely right, but I'm sure he'll correct me on it. And we're going to be talking about a new service that Temple University Hospitals is offering to people who have been victims of gun violence trauma. And at 2:40, we'll have Layla Dunbar, who will be talking about Black women and mental health, particularly if you're in stressful situations. We just got finished with the Olympics, and everybody saw that, Simone Biles was going through some things and decided not to participate in all of the events in the gymnastics space in the Olympics. So we'll talk a little bit about Black women, mental health, and self-care, because quite frankly, we're not all that good at that. Black women are really not all that good at self-care. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And but my first guest today is someone who has been working on trying to make sure that the pandemic doesn't leave you homeless, and helping people that are still trying to get back on their feet, despite the fact that we have opened things up only to have to scale things back. And we've talked about that all week, so we don't really have to get into it. But Councilwoman Helen Gim is joining us to talk about what's happening, the latest in what's going on with the eviction crisis. Thank you for joining us, Councilwoman Gim.
Good afternoon, Denise. I'm always glad to join you.
Well, thank you. I guess my first question is, what is the latest? I mean, we kind of have an idea of the crisis itself, but what is the latest that's going on now with it?
Well, the latest is that this week, housing advocates and tenants scored a pretty big victory by asking and demanding that the courts halt lockouts on a certain group of individuals. We have been under a federal eviction moratorium that expired in June of 2021. In July of 2021, the court started doing lockouts. To their credit, they had halted them from March 2020 until June of 2021. But they did start doing lockouts on individuals whose cases preceded the pandemic and some of whom have been pretty current up through this year. We were pretty upset about the situation, in part because, I've been working on this issue since I came on to City Council. We've done a huge amount to significantly reduce the number of evictions in our city. But I felt like the court's actions in the last several weeks have been a massive step backwards. They had not notified individuals, so lockouts always come as a surprise, which is absolutely unconscionable, because when you're, for your listeners who hopefully are unfamiliar with this whole situation, an eviction is a process. Like, there's a filing, and then there's a court case, and then there's notification. But the lockout is that knock on the door when a landlord-tenant officer comes and says you have 5 to 10 minutes to vacate the premises immediately. And that's all you've got. Now, the fact that that's a surprise to people is terrible. And in the last month since the court started the lockouts, we began getting inundated with calls from individuals, including people who had been who were not behind on rent. In fact, they had one gentleman made sure his landlord got $7,000 in rent assistance, and he was thrown out anyway. Individuals who were elderly, including, people who are then forced to live in their cars, families with very young children, as we are looking at 2 weeks before the start of school. And then the most important reason why we wanted to stop the lockouts is because COVID is on the rise. The numbers in Philadelphia have increased by 900% this summer alone. And we cannot afford to throw people out of their houses and have them, go be with other people, or, just be in a state of absolute stress and distress at this time. So we had a press conference this week on the municipal court steps. The courts took some action, not as far as we would like, but they halted all lockouts of individuals who have pending and approved rental assistance claims, and agreed to notify people. So certainly the lockouts sound like they're halted for this week, while they allow for reissuing of notifications so that people know if they don't fall within the protected classes.
Well, and I don't profess to know everything that happens in terms of the eviction system, but don't you have to go through the court process of an eviction before they can lock you out? They can't just change the locks on you, can they?
No. Many of these cases did go through the court process. Some of them preceded the pandemic, so they might have lingered since 2020, early 2020, late 2019. The problem was that when the pandemic hit, the lockouts aren't about money. The moratorium and keeping people housed is not just about money. We have distributed $135 million in rent checks directly to landlords. That is more than any small business anywhere, I would say, in the city of Philadelphia. And we've got tens of millions of dollars more ready to distribute. When there are options on the table, and when COVID is on the rise, and when evictions overwhelmingly target black renters, women, heads of household who are women and who are taking care of a family member who's disabled or elderly, or children in the house, we do not want to lock them out. That does not help the public health in any way. It puts everybody in the city in danger, and there are alternatives. So the courts were acting on cases that had moved and had not been protected under other moratoriums. One of our concerns about the federal eviction moratorium was that it was overall pretty weak. It put an enormous burden on the renter themselves. It had limited circumstances, and landlords are filing for termination of lease. They can file for other different reasons that the federal moratorium may not protect them for. And so, it's been a very big concern. While I was very, very glad and certainly supported the extension of the eviction moratorium, we really did need a stronger set of rules at the federal level that would have prohibited the kind of abuses we see right now.
Now, would you have to go through Congress for that, or is that something that the Biden administration could have done as like an executive order?
Absolutely. The federal eviction moratorium is a CDC order. It's not a congressional order. So the CDC, issued a health protected order. This is a protection of the public health order. It is not about rent or whether people have the ability to pay. It is recognizing that an eviction in any time, but especially during a pandemic, is traumatic. It results in people losing access often to employment, to health care, to safe, stable housing. It puts people either on the streets in congregant shelters or pursuing options, as I said earlier, with, a constituent that we dealt with that was living out of their car, which is just inconceivable, at this particular time. When there are options on the table, including tens of millions of dollars in rent assistance and diversion, which can help people find solutions and which include exit strategies, we do not need to force hundreds of families to go through the trauma of a lockout and to have your things thrown out onto the sidewalk, to have people being forced to seek emergency shelter, or worse, live on the streets.
So one of the things that I've heard, from people as both the pandemic and the eviction crisis have gone on is, well, who's looking out for the landlords? A lot of people buy homes as investment properties, turn them into apartments. We're not talking about the developers that are putting up apartments that, let's just be frank here, most Philadelphians can't afford to live in. We're talking about the folks with the investment properties. Has anything on the city level been made available to them
Absolutely. So to be clear again, the city of Philadelphia has distributed $135 million in rent checks to landlords. That is more than any other industry. There's no restaurant entity, restaurant industry, small business, retail, salons, barber shops, all struggled. Landlords who applied for rent assistance and were approved, and I recognize that the process is slow, but they received on average thousands and thousands of dollars that helped erase back rent debt and stabilize rent for up to 18 months going forward. There's no other industry that has had that level of stability. Second of all, there is an absolute moratorium on any foreclosure. Court of Common Pleas is not moving forward on any cases of mortgage foreclosures on rental properties. So landlords have had protections put in place. What we need to recognize is that 50% of Philadelphia who are living here in Philadelphia, 50% of people are renters. And that has a lot to do with the fact that, a decade ago we had a horrible subprime mortgage crisis that, certainly destroyed and had people lose ownership in property. But now we have got a huge number of people who are renters. And this issue is about the public health. We instituted things that we would not have normally done in most circumstances, right? Mask, wearing, shutting down restaurant industry, or prohibiting, indoor dining, all those things. Those were related to the public health. This also, halting lockouts, requiring people to file for rental assistance, seek diversion, alternatives to eviction, is related to the public health and recognizes that right now, throwing people out onto the street when they're struggling to make ends meet is not actually going to improve our health. And there are options that are available for others. So I feel like the landlord, the small homeowners, and I'm very thoughtful, because one of the things we fought for a year ago when we talked about doing this, a little more than a year ago, last spring of 2020, when I talked about the importance of helping pay people's rent, I had people literally laughing at us, and we were able to scrape together, $11 million. We started, we had a small local rent voucher program that I had fought for through our anti-eviction task force that, eventually kind of scaled up and morphed into like PHL Rent Assist, the very first one. And with relentless focus on the importance of both keeping people housed and making sure that landlords are getting paid, we have been able to be at a place where Philadelphia is going to distribute over $200 million to small landlords to keep people housed, to ensure that there's stability, and our housing market, as a result, is stronger than ever. This is not the depression that it was in 2008, 2009, when, the bottom fell out of the housing market because people exploited this. We have stabilized landlords for a large part. And if you're a landlord who is like, well, where is my, rent check we applied, it just takes a little bit of time, but help is on the way. And we need to make sure that more help is on the way. So hopefully landlords can work with us at this point to say to the state, which has $5 billion in emergency federal funding on, in a rainy day, quote unquote, rainy day fund, that they need to release some of that money out to our counties so that we can continue to keep landlords paid and our renters housing stable. There can be, in this particular case, stability and assurances and the public health. And I think Philadelphia has quite honestly done it better than anybody else. It's still an uphill battle because we used to be the fourth highest evicting city in the country pre-pandemic. But I am on a mission to end poverty-based evictions, and certainly am calling on the courts to halt all the lockouts, not just the lockouts of individuals with pending rent assist, but to halt all lockouts right now until we can get more time to sign people up and get them the help that they need.
Okay. Can you stick around for just a moment? Because we've got to go to break, but we had a couple of callers that had some questions for you.
Yep.
Okay. Before we go,
just quickly say the tenant hotline, 267-443-2500. That's 267-443-2500. I'll repeat it after the break. But if you're a landlord or you're a renter in need of assistance, call that hotline, and there's a housing counselor and lawyers on the other end who can walk you through things.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. But before we go, we invite you to join WURD for the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour. This year we celebrate West Oak Lane, Mantua, Northwest, and North Philly. Tiffany Bacon will broadcast live from a different neighborhood each Friday from 10 a.m. to noon. And our next stop is North Philly at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center, 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue on Friday, August 13th. That's tomorrow. You can pick up voter registration information, meet special guests, and stand with WURD and be a part of the movement to amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support and or renew your WURD membership on site. That's the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center from 10 a.m. to noon on Friday. That's tomorrow, August 13th. And we'll be back with more of The Source in a moment.
Hey there, beautiful. Have you had severe hair loss? Do you have a scalp disorder? Is your hair thinning around the edges and crown? If you answered yes to any of these questions, give us a call at 215-225-2442 to schedule a consultation with Babes Holistic Hair Salon located at 3117 North Broad Street. Babes Holistic Hair Salon is dedicated to improving your inner and outer beauty. This ad is brought to you by the North Broad Renaissance and Truist Foundation. Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing sites at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. A second testing location has been added at Richard Allen Preparatory Charter School. Testing is on Wednesdays and Fridays. For testing hours and more information, visit jeffersonhealth.org/community testing.
So, what's the asking price on this house?
You'd probably be more comfortable living somewhere else.
How long a lease is the landlord looking for?
Well, I'm sure you can afford to live here, but...
What are the schools like in this district?
Yeah, we have twins in the 5th grade.
This neighborhood isn't really for your kids. You know what I mean?
If you're Black, Latino, Asian American, or Middle Eastern, and a real estate agent or rental agent says anything like this, you know what it means. You're being discriminated against. Housing discrimination because of race, color, or national origin is against the law. If you believe you've experienced housing discrimination, contact HUD. Go to HUD.gov/fair housing. That's HUD.gov/fair housing. Fair housing. The law is on your side. A message from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Tune in every Saturday at 4 p.m. for the Did You Know Show with host Bryant Green, right here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM.
You're listening to The Source
On WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM, WURD.
And we're back with The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray, and you're listening to WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. Now, if you'd like to join our conversation, the call-in numbers are 215.
The King very well. I can talk just like the guy, and I would like to do that for those seniors that like myself, the age bracket that was in the civil rights movement. So I certainly hope I can get out and do that and give us a reminder of not Dr. King, but his significant words, because as you know, Dr. Lomax touched him. And Dr. Lomax said that when he visited, he took a lot of stress from him when he visited him because he was very stressed out. So I hope to get out there. One other thing I want to say about Charles Ellis yesterday, had a lady on the program that was talking about they was giving air conditioners and fans out to our seniors that may not have them. So I certainly hope that persons who was listening at the program got in touch with the agency that was on that the lady mentioned on the show there and took advantage of that. And remember this, Miss Denise, you and your husband and all people, look on the bright side of life. And that doesn't mean that you have to ignore the serious things in this life while we're on this earth, but look at the bright side. And, you know, when you look at the bright side, man, it will make a difference in your life and others, and that's our purpose in life. And that's what Dr. Lomax was about. You know, his initial was P. And that was the man there, and they named him that last name because he was pleasant. Dr. Lomax was a pleasant man, and because of his pleasantness, he made a difference. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for calling, Ron. I appreciate it. Next, we have Woody on line 2 from Philadelphia.
Yes, ma'am. This is Woody from the barbershop. How are you?
Good,
Miss
good.
Miss Councilwoman Helen Ginn, I have to tip the hat for you because I'll tell you, throughout the entire summer, every time I call your office, you're the only council person that answers. And Miss Samuels does a great job. I just wanted to let you know that. And I think with that kind of action and continuation of being concerned about the people, understanding that this whole issue of public health crisis, it is in fact that. But a question I have for you, do you believe through the years, since you're an immigrant, I'm a non-immigrant, that the people in the city of Philadelphia, this 30% illiteracy is due to inferior education here in our city of Philadelphia as it relates to our public schools?
First of all, thank you, Woody, and I also love Charlene. She's been a real trooper, and I'm so glad that she was able to both answer and hopefully help with whatever people are dealing with. And our office is always open, and please feel free to call us 215-686-3420. You know, I came on to City Council because of the situation in our public schools, and to me, there's no more important institution that's really got to be the thing that we wrap our heads around. It's complicated. It's challenging. I'm a former public school teacher. I did parent organizing. I did professional development training of teachers. I started my own school, doing everything possible to understand why it is that it is such an uphill battle here.
Well, I can tell Councilwoman, why this uphill battle exists. The battle exists because of 400 years of chattel slavery and the fact that we are the non-immigrants that built this nation. But it was part of the structure of the law not to teach the slave to read. That's 400 years of practice on making sure that you're not going to get the proper education. All the other immigrants, I tell people all the time, I'm not an African American. An African American comes here freely as an immigrant, got a good 1 to 12th grade education from his own country, and he takes advantage of the colleges here. So do all the other immigrants. What has happened to the children of the former chattel slaves living in America today is totally different. We need to at least focus on that. And if we could get some focus in that direction, I think we could make you the next mayor of Philadelphia.
Well, let's focus on the schools issue, and yes. I agree with you entirely, Woody. First of all, thank you for caring. A lot of people, kind of either throw up their hands, walk away, or quite honestly have left us, have left the city of Philadelphia. There's no question that we've lost people because of it. And I agree with you. There's a couple of things. Like there's, one of the books that I read a lot has been about how one particular city turns itself around by, it was, a high poverty school district by focusing specifically on literacy. Literacy at each and every step of a child's life. It's not like, do you know how to string a set of letters together? Can you pronounce them? But literacy in the way that it brings a world to life, where you can critically analyze news and media and understanding that, education really is what it's supposed to be because it's taught you the critical learning skills. I think we can still do that here. We're wrestling with a school district that has lost its way. We're fighting over, we have basic needs that we're fighting over. I really struggle because I fought so hard to end a state takeover and bring back local control with a school board that needs a priority. And to me, I think it's so easy to say that a thoroughly trained teaching force done in literacy from pre-K all the way through 12th grade and beyond is the most sensible investment that you can do. And that, pull back on some of, all these like testing mandates and all these things that they're chasing and try to get a handle on recognizing what it means when teachers feel good about being an expert in something. But, I agree with you. I thank you. And
let me say one last thing, and then I'm going to let you go because I'm very proud of the fact that you at least recognize this. Miss Veronica Joyner has chartered schools. She is really amazing with elementary education. Getting a good 1 to 3rd, 1 to 5th grade education, if you lose it there, the foundation is lost. So when people are focusing on colleges and all these other things, I want Philadelphia to focus on elementary education. If we can get that started, reading, writing, and arithmetic, Ms. Gim, I think you can become mayor of Philadelphia. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Woody. Thank you.
Wow, people are trying to give you a new job.
I am amazed that, this focus in on young people, on literacy, and on possibilities is the kind of platform that people believe in so much. It's something that I believe in really a lot. I think it gets really filtered away when you're in city council sometimes, talking about what the world looks like through a 6-year-old's eyes in Philadelphia feels sometimes removed from all the work that you're trying to do with everything else. But at the heart of why I would ever be on city council and what I care about so much from the caller is this idea that we are trying to see the world through the eyes of a young person who's got 20, 40, 60 years to transform the city. And we have got so much to do, and, just being driven by that is really, really helpful to hear somebody say, you've got to be driven by that.
Okay. Well, we have one more caller, Prince from Schuylkill. You're on line 3. Thank you for joining us on The Source.
Hey, Denise, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
And hello to your guest. Well, Denise, I want to ask you a question because your guest made a statement. She said poverty-based eviction. So if she could explain that, because the poverty base inside of the city of Philadelphia is the income less than $26,000 a year. And also, would she make that database available? And the people who have received stimulus checks and who did not pay their rent, would that list also give me that description? And would it give me the description of the people who turned down jobs while they were collecting the stimulus checks and they didn't pay their rent? So I think it's not as cut and dry as she say to stop evictions without having the totality of the database that allow us to take a look at the whole scope of the person, not just a council person's priority or privilege to say stop evictions. Another thing, the $5 million surplus that the federal government has. We deal with elections in this city for reasons. So when she's at the state house, we elect state reps, not city council people to go to the state house. We elect Congress people to do our bidding at the federal level. And I've not seen her collectively have a congressman or a state rep or a state senator as an interview. In front of cameras, so they are collectively having a press conference to talk about tackling this problem. I've only seen her articulate it, and it's somewhat twitching. It's starting with education, and then it's going into the bigger dynamics of the numbers and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, Denise, why would we are only in this problem because of other cultures and other groups of people teaching us their energy and their culture, and we not teaching our self-culture. So if she's saying that we should, like she say, she created her own school. Her own school, to a certain extent, has to be designed and based around her culture. It may service everybody, but her culture is not everybody's culture. And so if you got $1 million or $2 million set aside so we can teach kids who they are and their purpose, and it's not so much driven by us teaching them. It has to be an economic, vocational purpose to them learning so we can build and drive some of these cranes that are building these buildings. And my last point is, Denise, I think it's irresponsible for any caller or although you give us an opinion, we all have an opinion, to say somebody's the next mayor based on their point of view, based on the ideology that they service. I think it's a collective that takes more than just this piece right here, because we somehow are in the mix of without poor black kids in this city, there'll be no school district. Without poor black kids in this city, there'll be no housing authority. Without a poor city of black people, there'll be no functioning at all. And so we have to get off of this, let's use our kids in different ways and some kind of separation. Sorry I was so long, but thanks for this time, Denise. And I'll stay on the phone. I usually hang up, but I'll listen if there's a retort or if you want to move on.
Okay. Well, you don't have to sit on the phone to listen, but if you want to do that, I can't stop you.
There might be a retort. There might be something to this, because I don't want my council person running to Harrisburg getting locked up when it looks like she's stepping on the toes of the state rep and the state senators. I just don't want that to happen. And I also don't want the state reps and state senators not to be proficient in doing their jobs. And she's speaking about federal dollars. She does not manage or control any federal dollars. Dwight Evans and not Ryan Boyer, but the other Boyer guy controls those federal dollars. It's good to have a collective meeting, a press conference with these people, not in a room, be transparent so we all can see it, Zoom call or whatever, so we all can understand it better. Because I'm tired of somebody saying this person is running for mayor because they're out there doing something that could be beneficial for everybody. That should not be the prelude.
Well, first of all, Prince, with all due respect, under the First Amendment, you can say anything you want. And,
I respect that. Yeah, I respect that.
you know, if someone is going to say, I mean, I could say that the sky is brown. Now, most people know the sky is not brown, or at least I would hope they would know the sky is not brown. But under the First Amendment, I can say that.
I agree. I accept that. We good on that. We good. We good on that. I accept that. I'm just saying that the actions of running this city with all of the problems we have doesn't just lie in education. You know, doesn't lie in terminology that's not understood. And when you say eviction, poverty-based eviction, you have to have a clear understanding of what that is. So I don't want you talking at me. I want to ask you those questions. Is this person in poverty because they refused to have a job? Did this person get stimulus while they were, a PPP loan while they were in the situation where they could have paid their rent?
Okay, Prince, how about if we let Councilwoman Ginn answer your question?
Thank you.
No problem.
Well, I mean, there's a lot there. There's just a lot there. And, you know, I heard you loud and clear, Prince. You know, one of the things that I always respect is coming on to WURD. I've been working, you know, you may not know anything about me, which is fine. I don't expect you to or anything like that. It's my responsibility, you know, to meet the questions that I was asked with my responses. But, you know, I want to be really clear that I have always been a very loud advocate around schools. And because we are so often told at the local level that we don't have power, that we don't have voice, it's up to people with titles and money and who are in D.C. or Harrisburg or far away calling the shots, that I made a decision a long time ago not to be quiet about it. Now, it's not just me that does this. If you think I'm acting alone, I'm not. I wouldn't be on city council if I acted alone. I work with a large group of people, multiracial across the board. And part of this is building a bigger coalition of people for a better Philadelphia for everybody. And I know that for a lot of people, that doesn't sound like it includes Black people, and especially African Americans who've lived here for a very long time in the city. And that's why most of my time has been spent outside of halls of power, working on issues like housing, like schools, like labor rights, like civil rights, like, you know, criminal justice reform, juvenile justice reform, so that we can show that a broader coalition of people can be invested in the rise of Black power, Black leadership, and that all of us can rise as a result. I come out of communities that aren't even treated as human. Our folks are detained, deported, they've been, you know, all of this kind of stuff. We're not even citizens. Some of us don't speak the language, but we still had to find change, nonetheless, in a country that didn't treat us like humans sometimes. And so there is alignment. You may not see it, you may not respect it, and I respect your right to not, you know, to not feel that way. But there has historically been alignment, and I'm proud to be part of an Asian American community and an immigrant community here in Philadelphia that has always tried to be in working alongside with and in service with Black communities across the city of Philadelphia, trying to change the circumstances that bring us all down. That being said, you know, I'll talk a little bit about evictions. I mean, you know, you want to talk about data, we've got data. We are the fourth highest evicting city in the country. Pre-pandemic. In 2019, we did 20,000 evictions a year. They overwhelmingly target Black Philadelphians. 75% of evictions involve a Black renter. 70% of them involve a woman, and over half of them involve somebody who's taking care of a child, an elderly person, or somebody who is disabled. You can call it whatever.
Councilwoman, I'm sorry, but we've got to go to another quick break. We'll be back with more of The Source in a moment. I'm Denise Clay Murray, and you're listening to WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media.
I've done everything to stay healthy and protect my unborn child during COVID. The way I see it, getting vaccinated is one less risk to me and my baby's health, for now and the future. Plus, free vaccines are available in my neighborhood. You don't even need an appointment. Just walk in. You have the power to finish this.
Visit pa.gov/COVID for more information. Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
In Philly, COVID-19 vaccines are safe, free, and effective. It protects you from contracting the COVID-19 virus. Vaccines do not change your DNA or contain microchips. Caribbean people are not immune to the deadly virus without COVID-19 vaccine shots, and it does not affect your immigration status. Join us for our back-to-school COVID-19 vaccination resource fair on Saturday, August 21st from 11 to 3 p.m. at Sturgis Recreation Center in Albany. Free food, school supplies, and vaccines. Visit www.caribbeancommunityinphiladelphia.com, Facebook or Instagram page.
The Black Words Book Club.
WURD Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The Black Words book for September is Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America by Keith Boykin. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, September 14th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color.
Are you looking for a job? WURD has got you covered. We just launched a brand new job portal featuring jobs from some of Philadelphia's leading companies and arts organizations. If you go to the portal right now, you will see jobs from WURD Radio, the Kimmel Center, Her Foods, Always Best Care, and more. Apply for a job today. Go to our livelihood website at wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com and click jobs.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And we're back with more of The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray, filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders. And you're listening to me on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. And I'm going to let you finish your thought, Councilwoman, before we go to our next caller. Because I didn't want to break that up without you finishing your thought.
No, I think, like I said, I think that when we were talking a little bit about evictions, what I was trying to outline is that the issue of evictions, by data, by numbers, is very much about what is happening to Black communities in the city of Philadelphia. It's about what's happening to women in the city of Philadelphia, and is absolutely about what's happening to children, families, and to seniors, veterans, and our disabled communities. So, this is not just an issue about, a stimulus check doesn't even cover, you got one stimulus check, it didn't even cover an average month's rent in the city of Philadelphia. So, I think this question of whether and why we have this persistent problem has a lot to do with the fact that we've allowed housing, which most of us consider to be the most essential thing, and certainly, what we pour a lot of our effort, time, and our own personal investments into, but to be purely a product of the market. How much can you pay? And somehow, if you don't pay, you don't deserve it, and then people get angry when they're homeless on the streets. That kind of mentality has got to change. And what we were able to do in 2020 in Philadelphia was historic. We took a city that was once the 4th highest evicting city that did 20,000 household evictions a year. That's not people, that's households. You could multiply that by anywhere from 2 to 8. And that's how many people we would throw out each and every single year. And we brought that number to under 4,500 in 2020. I am here to end poverty-based evictions because I think that there needs to be other alternatives, and the federal government needs to realign its priorities away from bailing out airline companies that create poverty-level jobs to supporting people to stay stable in their homes and then demanding that those homes be basically livable. That is not too much to ask in the wealthiest country in the world. And so, I've been focused on and attentive to the problems, recognizing that there are landlords as well as renters as well as broader communities. But anybody who comes in and does not deny that this issue is fundamentally impacting Black neighborhoods and communities, the city of Philadelphia overall, women and families, it just does not know about what the actual data looks like. So, there's lots of different ways we can go. My door is always open to listen to people who have alternatives. But right now, there's no question that housing needs to be a top priority. It was always a priority. But, there's one thing maybe we could learn from this godforsaken pandemic. It's that we've got to get our head on straight and realign our priorities and make sure they're about the things that create a livable city, and not just a city of the haves and have-nots. So, that's basically all I wanted to say.
Okay. We have Jackie on line 1 from the main line. Thank you for joining us, Jackie.
Yes, Sister Denise. I want to say that Woody is right. It's like making a cake, and you have to have all the ingredients. And he is right, because I come from African American, from the mountains of North Carolina to Philadelphia, and the tribe of Thigpen. And George Washington said, keep a feather, ink feather, and a pencil and a brown piece of paper out of the Negro hand on his deathbed, that they're not to read, count, or write. So we must keep the faith and just keep the Lord, because we need the Lord now, and he's in the midst of all this. We're not alone. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Next, we have Bree from Germantown on line 2. Bree, thank you for joining us on The Source.
Hi, good afternoon, ladies.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
A little better now, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make a comment. It seems like, the African-American community is being attacked in so many different ways. And I appreciate Councilwoman Jim bringing out the statistics about the homelessness, the eviction numbers that she has. But I also wanted to focus on the education part, because I heard a lot of callers talking about the education. I had a family member who was a teacher for the school district of Philadelphia and then transferred out to the Downingtown Postville area. One of the biggest problems that Woody always brings up is that the kids aren't reading, and a lot of the suburban schools have reading specialists from 1st to 3rd grade to make sure the kids are getting a strong foundation. And another part of that, and I wanted Ms. Jim to comment on this question, there was a funding problem, a major funding problem in our state of Pennsylvania, where the Black school district, Philadelphia, and other Black school districts were getting significantly funded less than the white school districts. And I was wondering whatever happened with that, because if we had more money to pay more teachers, I know you'd have to pay their health care and everything else, but if we really want to see something work with education, and it's so many different things, but with education in particular, we probably need to hire more reading specialists and concentrate in reading. And I know it's also math and arithmetic, whatever we can do, maybe they could be smaller groups. What's happening with the funding with Black and brown school districts? That's my question, and thank you guys for everything that you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for calling. Do you have an update on that,
I do,
Councilwoman?
and thank you so much, Bree. First of all, I absolutely 1,000% support your call for reading specialists. I think that we were able to win them within the primary grade, but really we need reading specialists across the board, and it's not just about primary grades. It should be about primary grades, but I think we have that. I think what we need is to, make sure that that's spread throughout the elementary school experience and beyond. We have 6 librarians, 6 out of 200 schools in the school district of Philadelphia. There's almost no elementary school with a full-time librarian who's in the school. We need to value literacy. The earlier caller said it, Bree just said it. We need to value literacy in the city of Philadelphia, and it looks complicated. Now, what I'll say about the call about fair funding, and this is my heart and soul, and I want to thank again Bree for bringing this up. In September, for the very first time, the state of Pennsylvania is finally on trial for the criminal underfunding of black and brown school districts across the city of Philadelphia, black, brown, and immigrant school districts across the state of Pennsylvania, rather. And it is a trial that will, for the very first time, test the Pennsylvania Constitution's commitment to a fair and thorough and efficient education promised to every child in the Commonwealth. And I'm pretty sure that, as the caller noted, if you were to take an average third grader at Overbrook Elementary and compare the resources that that third grader has to a school not even 2 miles away at Lower Merion Elementary School, you will not see an equal, fair, thorough, or efficient education being delivered to the child who is just 2 miles away in the city of Philadelphia. And that to me is going to be the most important state constitutional case that this state has seen in, I can't even tell you when. I think personally for me, I think it's the most important constitutional case because it will put the state on trial for failing to make an equal system of education among counties. And you will hear a lot of people say, well, I paid, to send my child so that, they'll go to, Lower Merion that spends twice as much as the city of Philadelphia public schools do. The difference is both systems belong to the same Commonwealth school system. We are all the same Commonwealth school system. It cannot be right that one gets twice as much spent on them as our schools does, and that the state has done less in the last 20 years to ameliorate for that inequity than it ever has before. So I look forward to September, and I want to thank Bree because I want your listeners to know that this state funding trial, this state funding case goes to trial in September in a court. But we do not actually have to wait for lawyers and Supreme Court justices or state judges to make that determination. We should put Harrisburg on trial right now. School starts in 2 weeks. We do not have air conditioning in the majority of our schools, and it's 98 degrees outside, probably over 100 if you consider the heat index. We do not have enough ventilation or cleaning systems that can ensure a safe environment for young children amidst COVID. We have 6 librarians, as I said, distributed across the entire school district of Philadelphia with 200 different schools. That is unconscionable. So, no, we don't have to wait for a trial, and we don't have to allow lawyers to argue this case before us. We can make this case. We should continue to press this case with each and every one of our state legislators, with each and every one of our Congress members, and to City Council, which has a chance to maybe do a school modernization campaign, to maybe try to budget for something bigger. So I look forward to having that conversation. And again, please feel free for any of your listeners to call my office anytime, 215-686-3420. I know you have a fabulous person whom I love too, Scott Charles, who's on the way, so I certainly won't take any time away from him.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, Councilwoman Gim. I really appreciate it. And thank you to our listeners and callers. I know I have a couple people that I'm going to get back to after the break, but we're going to take a break. And we'll be back with more of The Source on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. And I'm Denise Clay Murray, and we'll be back after this.
Philadelphia Families, PHL Pre-K, the city's free quality pre-K program, is growing and now enrolling. Over 160 pre-K centers are ready to serve children this year. There are no income limits for this free pre-K program. Children who are 3 or 4 years old as of September 1 can enroll. Call 844-PHL-PRE-K or visit phlprek.org to learn more and find a quality pre-K center. That's 844-745-7735. This program is made possible by the Philadelphia Beverage Tax.
Tune in to Denise Clay's Financial Literacy segment on Monday, August 30th at 3 p.m., sponsored by WSFS Bank. For more information on boosting your financial know-how, visit the Knowledge Center at WSFSbank.com. WSFS Bank, we stand for service.
What is dedication?
My daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around. And I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't? I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Join WURD for the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour. This year, we celebrate West Oak Lane, Mantua, North, West, and South Philly. I'm Tiffany Bacon. I'll broadcast live from a different neighborhood each Friday from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. Our next stop is North Philly at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center, 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue on Friday, August 13th. Pick up voter registration information, meet special guests, and stand with WURD and be a part of the movement to amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support and join or renew your 4WURD membership on site. That's the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center from 10 a.m. until 12 noon, Friday, August 13th. WURD, showing love this summer.
The WURD Radio Neighborhood Love Tour is sponsored by Comcast and supported by PICO, Keystone First, Ready Set Philly, and Hope Partnership for Education. Be there this Friday at the Summer Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour and stand with WURD Radio to amplify voices of the Black community as a digital 4WURD member for as low as $5 per month. And receive a free gift for signing up. See you on Friday and join Tiffany Bacon, 10 a.m. till noon at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center, 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue. Or visit wordradio.com. Start or renew your 4WURD membership today.
Boom! Yeah. Now that I got your attention, yeah. Hey, how you doing? 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 Come on. Every dub, every minute. Hey, back again. Hey, y'all mind walking with us for a second? Talk to him.
Tell me what you see when I pass by. A shadow, a cloud, or a line in the sky. Try again, next time that you see me. I'm walking, I'm walking, I'm walking. 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 Some people say walking takes too long, but I say with walking you can't go wrong. Why should you rush your way through life? You won't get very far running all the time. Look at me, I'm trying every day. I fall down.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Streaming live on wordradio.com, the WURD Radio app.
Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And we're back with more of The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray, filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders. And I'm thankful that all of you are still here and listening to us on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. And we have a couple of callers that I wanted to make sure we got to before we had our next group of guests with Scott Charles from Temple University Hospital. Let's go with Elias from North Philly. You're on line 3, and welcome to The Source.
Good afternoon, Source family.
Hi.
Hey, is Councilman Kim still there?
No, she isn't, but did you want to ask her a question?
If she's there.
Well, she's not here.
Okay, so it's useless. Okay? It's basically, I wanted to question her because she said that the Asian community, and I'm not racist or anything, the Asian community has done a lot for the black community. I beg to differ that. So if she wants my vote, okay, she's going to have to get in contact with the Asian business associations, all those the Latino business associations that are all for the past 38 years preying on our community and opening up all type of smoke shops, beer delis, and selling all these drug paraphernalia. How can anything work and fight crime if we support drug dealers with the means of keeping people enabled and perpetuating the drug addiction by selling all these type of drug paraphernalias in these beer delis, which is all owned by Asian business associations, Latino business associations. You have the Indians, you have the Arabs, you have all of them open up smoke shops. It's not a black business. We don't have black businesses, and I'm sure that our people won't be selling those type of items that enables drug addiction. That's what I needed to tell her, because when she said that Asian businesses is helping the our black neighborhood, that it's the opposite. Okay, they have been keeping us addicted because they know what sells. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So I mean, it is useless. So if she wants, that's why I wanted to put her in her place and see how she's got my vote. If she gets in contact with the other council lady, Gilmore Richardson. Yesterday we had a nice conversation regarding this problem, and she gave me some hope that something's going to be done about it. So they all need to be in the same page, because I sent her an email last year and all the council members regarding this pandemic. This is a pandemic, and this is not only in Philly. This is nationwide, only in our black and Latino communities. And just look at all those businesses around there, and you don't see no African Americans owning stores around, and we won't be selling that stuff if we did have it.
Okay. So
I want to say.
Okay. Well, thank you for your call. And next we have Diane from South Philly. You're on line 1, and welcome to The Source.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for taking my call. You're doing such a wonderful job. Your patience and everything. And I want to congratulate you to your marriage. Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, Chris got the best, and he got the best.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. I want to talk about the Philadelphia school system. I remember when I was raising my children. They're older now, but the Inquirer used to come out with a report how each school was graded. And I noticed they don't have that no more. And I used to follow that report every year because I want to pick my children. I want to put my children in the best school. Even all the schools should be the best. You know, the Secretary of Education came here one time, and they took him to Central. He said every school should be like a Central, you know, and all the schools in our neighborhood was like low-performing schools. And I remember Mary Mason said, she said, our children are not done. Why our children is low-income, you know, income school? So I put my children in school, and it was bad, Denise. It was bad. I fought, but nobody wasn't fighting with me. At that time, I understand I needed people. But I was talking to the parents, and like they got angry with me. So I said, you know what? I'm taking my children out. I'm taking them out. And me and my husband, we don't have a lot of money, but we sacrificed to put them in a private school. And then my other son, he was able to go to the Northeast, and he had a good education, a very good education. And I think it's unfair for one area to have what they need, and then our areas don't have what we need, It's like right now, they don't have nurses in the school. Our children are sick. Some of our children have diabetes, and other kind of diseases. And last year, I think not last year because school wasn't open. 2 years ago, a young man at Hot Trail School, I think he was 8 years old, he collapsed, Denise, and you didn't hear nothing else about that, And when my children, I got sick, very sick, so they had to go to public school. And my son said, Mom, what I'm learning in the 11th grade, I learned that in the 4th grade. So what I had to do, I had to put him in all kind of programs so he won't get bored in school and quit school. So he got in a lot of programs, and the program that he was in is the one that kept him interested in school. So, it's a bad situation, Denise.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for calling. I really appreciate it, and I will pass your congratulations on to Chris when I see him later. Thank you. Well, one of the topics that we find ourselves talking about a lot, not only on this show but on other shows, is the topic of gun violence in our city, and the fact that we have a pretty high murder rate happening now. But what we don't often talk about is the hidden costs of that gun violence, the people who are impacted in various ways in terms of residual trauma, in terms of having to bury a loved one. We don't talk as much about that as we should, perhaps. And I wanted to bring on the folks. There's a program that Temple University Hospital has that addresses that particular issue. And I wanted to bring on somebody that I've wanted to interview for a long, long time because I admire him so much. His name is Scott Charles, and he is with Temple University Hospital. And Scott, you brought some of the members of the trauma assistance team with you. Could you please introduce everyone?
Yeah. So on saxophone is Ian Hurst. I don't know. I felt compelled to do that. I've always wanted, my whole life, I've wanted to do that. So I'll go by order of my screen and clockwise. So we have Ian Hurst Herman, who is one of our trauma victim support advocates. We have Leslie Ramirez, who is often found in the emergency department in the evenings. And we have Sadiqa Lucas, who is one of our advocates who works on the weekends. So it's exciting for us because we rarely get to see each other. We all work kind of different shifts, and it's only through these Zoom meetings that we get to see each other face to face anymore.
So tell me a little bit about the Trauma Victims Advocate Program.
Yeah, so the program started in 2019 as a way to respond to the immediate needs of victims of violence, of all forms of violence. Obviously, we see an inordinate amount of gun violence being here in Philadelphia, but we also deal with patients who have been stabbed or assaulted or victims of hit and run. And the program is supported through the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency using Victim of Crime Act funds. And what it has essentially allowed us to do is to put crisis responders in the emergency department who are embedded as part of the trauma team, so that when a victim of a crime comes in and their families come in, we have somebody who's completely dedicated to that individual and their families. As you can imagine, finding out that your loved one has been a victim of any kind of trauma is terrible. There seems to be just an extra level of tragedy that's added when the injury is intentional. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that victims feel supported and their families feel supported from the door. And we'll work with them for the entirety of their stay here at the hospital, and then we'll continue to work with them after they've been discharged, after we've linked them to crime victim services.
So I guess what made you all decide to put this particular team together? Did you see a need for this? Did you see that there was, I mean, because there's a certain amount of trauma that goes with, being in an emergency room under any circumstances, because that just stinks.
Right.
That means something really bad has happened.
Yeah.
So I guess why put this particular group, what was the impetus to put this particular group of people together? And to the folks who are joining us, how did you personally decide that you wanted to do this? Because you're basically, helping people get through traumatic incidents all the time, which has got to be really hard on you.
So I'll quickly answer the first part, and then I'll kick it over to these guys.
Okay.
And they better answer correctly because their jobs are on the line. But
oh no.
The truth of the matter is, I've been at Temple University Hospital since 2005, and I estimate that we've probably treated more than 8,000 shooting victims at the hospital in that time. And, one of the things that I recognized early on, because I had the misfortune of seeing a lot of law enforcement officers, there was a period of time in the mid 2000s when we just seemed to be losing a lot of law enforcement officers. And, I saw the way that the hospital responded when that happened. And you would see that, I know that was happening throughout the city. And there seemed to be just such a disconnect between that, because it was such a high profile situation. It's understandable, because we develop relationships with law enforcement here at the hospital. So we kind of get to know them, and we get to know those folks. And when something like that happens, when a tragedy befalls them, there's a real outpouring of support. There wasn't so much that level of support when regular individuals from the neighborhood were being killed or were being injured. And it wasn't really for a lack of want. It was just, we're in an incredibly busy emergency department, and this was happening all day, every day. And so I had always had this in the back of my mind, that if there was an opportunity that would arise, I would seize it. And this is exactly what happened when I was made aware that there was this funding that would be out there to enable us to connect crime victims to support. I saw it as an opportunity to also assist them in other ways with their more immediate needs. And that's really what this was about, was responding to everybody in this with the same level of urgency. And that's how we got started. And I guess I'll kick it over to whomever. I know Ian probably is dying to explain how we got to working together.
Yeah, I was shot in 2010. I received treatment at Temple. That's when I met Scott, and I kind of stayed in touch over the next couple of years as I was recovering, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I kind of just was drawn to the work that he was doing, because he was, I saw, I guess, like Scott said, just such a glaring need. And I saw that, in the little bit that my trauma was addressed in my recovery, I saw how effective that was. And I just basically reached out to Scott and, asked him if I could help, or if there was any way I could be involved. At first, I was just kind of annoying him every day until he would let me come in and help out. And eventually it worked. So I got in here. And it's been, it's a challenging job, but it's a rewarding job. We meet most people on the worst day, one of the worst days of their life. So it's our job to just, make that as smooth as possible. It's never going to be a good experience. But, anything we can do to support or comfort them or make it a little less worse, it really does have a big effect, and people remember it. And I can say that from experience. So that's why I was drawn to this work.
Leslie, how did you get here?
So I started with Congreso as a victim advocate. I received referrals from police officers, from the hospital, from the community, and eventually the program expanded to the hospital. And I eventually wound up visiting patients at the hospital, and that's how I met Scott. And that was my first taste of it. And I've truly enjoyed helping patients along the way, just giving them that little piece of that there is hope, that there are programs available. Many patients had no clue that they would help with medical expenses, that there was actual help out there. So just leaving the hospital, and I mean, that was rewarding for me, because they were very grateful. And then I would work with them from that point on. They would come into the agency, and we would work with them in a holistic way. We would counsel them and refer them to other programs if need be. And that was my taste, and it expanded, and there I am at Temple.
And Sadiqa, and I'm sorry in advance if I mispronounced your name.
No, that's right, Sadiqa. Thank you.
Yay, I got it right.
Wow. So I met Scott, I want to say, several years ago, partnering with Scott and Temple through the Cradle to the Grave program. And through our connection with Cradle to the Grave, Scott and his team and the hospital were able to save some of my students through the partnership, allow students to really get, a taste of what it's like to enter the emergency area. And, through that partnership, Scott often mentioned the position, and, we talked about, how intense the position was, et cetera. And then with time, here it is, as the last member joining a phenomenal team. I'm not just saying that because Scott said our jobs are on the line, but if anyone knows Scott will, give off he will give you, the last sweatshirt, his last chicken finger from Love and Honey, etc. So being able to work with Scott and the team and the hospital has, allowed me to kind of look at some of the violence in our city and just some of the trauma, and just deep down inside say, someone has to do it.
But how do you all handle that? Because I've been writing a series of stories for Love Now Media on the hidden costs of gun violence. And the one thing that strikes me is that when you're dealing with people who are dealing with this kind of trauma, I'm always reminded of Mr. Rogers, who always said in any situation where there's, something bad going on, you always look for the helpers. But who helps the helpers? I guess, how do you handle what it is you have to handle every day?
It's a great question. I think one of the realities is that this whole program is a reflection of the fact that I had become incredibly burned out over doing this so many years. And I remember saying to this team of individuals who for me feels like really a dream team of superheroes, I just said that I want them to bring their own flavor to this job. Each of them was hired because of their unique qualifications and their experiences. And I was hoping from the gate that they were going to be better at this job than I was when I turned it over. And that is what, in fact, we found. They are so much better at doing this work than I ever was. And I can't tell you how incredibly proud I am. But the truth is that by the end of my doing this job alone, I had become truly burned out as a function of just vicarious trauma. We see this not just in this position, but you certainly see it among nurses and doctors. And Denise, as I'm sure you're aware from the people that you've interviewed who are working in the communities that are closest to this issue, it's taken a real toll on us. And it has really been exacerbated by the pandemic over the last 18 months. And so one of the things that I strive to do better with this group of individuals, and it's really something that I'm working on in this next year, is to address their need for self-care. I know we throw that term around a lot, but really the goal is to make sure that they're taking care of themselves, because this is absolutely the kind of work that will chew you up and spit you out. One of the things that I'm grateful for that has happened kind of organically is that we communicate nonstop. So at least 3 times a day, we're checking in with one another. We're giving updates. And the team just kind of leans on one another. And, you know, they're very good about checking in with each other. I try to check in with them as much as possible. And I have the luxury of working with Ian throughout the day. So I can lay eyes on him and just, you know, make sure he's doing okay. But it's an important question.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment because I got to take a short break. We'll be back in a moment with more of The Source and the folks from Temple's Trauma Advocates team. I knew I was going to mess that up, but you know, we'll be back with more with them in a minute. After this break, you're listening to The Source on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media.
More than joint replacement, it's total joint care. Einstein Orthopedics offers minimally invasive, same-day procedures like anterior hip replacement and knee replacement surgery. Our board-certified surgeons and dedicated team will give you personalized care every step of the way. From your first appointment to surgery to post-procedure follow-up care, Einstein Orthopedics offers everything you need to get moving again. Visit einstein.edu/total joint to learn more.
I'm Bill Hite, Superintendent of the School District of Philadelphia. I'm excited to tell you that we will ring the bell on our first day of school on Tuesday, August 31st. Full day, in-person learning, 5 days a week. We've been preparing for a healthy and safe return to our schools. Learn more about our efforts at philasd.org/ring-the-bell. That's philasd.org/ring-the-bell. See you on August 31st.
Teachers shape the future. Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who'll make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who'll help combat climate change, and generating possibilities for a student who'll be the first in their family to graduate college. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Teach. Learn more and receive free support at teach.org.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And we're back with more of The Source on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. I'm Denise Clay Murray, and you're listening to The Source, and we're glad that you're here. I'm joined by some really awesome people that are trying to help folks who find themselves dealing with trauma at Temple University Hospital's emergency room, get through it and be able to do what they can to, I guess, move forward with their lives. Now, if you would like to join our conversation, the numbers here are, okay, I know where they are. They're just not coming up immediately. This is, okay. Just a second, folks, because I had it and then it went away. Okay, the call-in numbers are 215-634-8065, or if you're calling from anywhere else in the known world other than Philadelphia, it's 866-361-0900. Now, what is the process when someone comes in to the emergency room and and you can tell that they need help, or you think they might need help? Does someone approach you and say, hey, this person needs help? Or are you already there to say, okay, this person needs help, let's see what we can do to help them?
So,
Okay.
there you go, Leslie.
No, go ahead.
So we have a pager on. It's actually an app now on our phones, but a pager system to let us know, when a new trauma patient is coming into the emergency room. And we respond to most all traumas. Some are more geared towards what we do, crime victim assistance. So we're on the lookout for gunshot wounds, stab wounds, assaults, pedestrians hit by cars. Sometimes that falls into our purview. So, when that happens, when we get our page, we go to the trauma bay, to the entrance of the emergency room, and instantly we start gathering information. We're trying to find the patient's name, date of birth, where they're coming in from. Do they have any loved ones that were on the scene that will be coming to the hospital? All sorts of demographic information. We're trying to be the in-between between the doctors and the police officers so that, each one of them can get their respective jobs done. And really just kind of being a liaison between, the outside of the hospital and the inside of the hospital, and trying to make everyone's job a little bit easier. And so they can focus on really patient care, and we can worry about the social aspects of what's going on. Because, it's always, it can be chaotic, it can be high energy. So we're there to really try and diffuse the situation and make the things that need to happen as quickly as possible. Do you guys have stuff to add to that?
Oh, you said it pretty well. I mean, I also keep in mind that it's never the same. Every situation is different. You expect one outcome, and there's always something, a different outcome. So it all depends.
Denise, one of the things that I always say is, and I know this is probably something to which you can relate, is that I hate using the analogy, but it's kind of like being a wedding planner, or anybody whose job is to kind of, wedding planner on your worst wedding possible, but to think about all of the potential pitfalls that might arise. What are the things that can be traumatizing to a family that's already experiencing trauma? We are a hospital, and we are a hospital that's unfortunately dealing with a high level of violence. So we want to protect patients and visitors. We have metal detectors and we have security guards. You can imagine how imposing that might feel for a family that just got a phone call that said your son was shot and we think he's going to Temple. So one of the reasons we're collecting that information in the trauma bay as quickly as possible is so that we can go out and we can communicate with the security team and just say, hey, just so you know, I think this is the name of the mother and this is the name of the father who may be showing up here. Please understand they're going to be under a tremendous amount of duress. Just get us as soon as they come. And the security team has been fantastic. They recognize that we don't want to be seen as this imposing force, but rather as community members. I mean, when we all clock out, we all go to our homes in Philly. These are our neighbors. They're Temple's neighbors. They're my neighbors. So when they show up, we want to treat them as humanely as possible, and we want to embrace them, and we don't want to feel cold. And so we try to get out in front of all of those things. And when, Ian talked about the fact that we're trying to liaison with law enforcement, I think that that's helpful too, because I think it sets the tone. We want to lower the temperature. We want to help people understand that everybody is involved in the same, toward the same end, hopefully, particularly when we talk about when it comes to the healthcare providers, that, we want the family to understand that we're here to support them. We're here pulling for them. Our job is to try to help save their loved one. And, any amount of information that we can give them, we're going to try to do that because, as a father who has taken his daughter to both of his daughters to emergency departments, the waiting is one of the most anguishing things, is to not have information, to just be sitting there staring at walls. And fortunately, I've never been in a position where either of my daughter's lives were at risk. But you can imagine how terrifying that is for a family when all they know is that their loved one has been the victim of violence.
Now, do you stay with these families? I mean, throughout the entire process so that, you're there with them the entire time?
It all depends. Their needs, the situation. There are times that we have 4 or 5 victims of a gunshot at the same time. So it's kind of allocating your time and setting priorities, whose needs, and and sad that you have to make those decisions, but and they're pretty understanding as long as you keep them updated and give them information. We've had situations where we've had 4 and 5 family members, and no one had ID. So it's like, we want information, and it's, you have to let them know, well, we're trying to figure things out. We need to make sure we have positive IDs. And for the most part, everyone's will understand. So it's just a matter of what we have, what current situation we're in at that moment.
Did anyone else want to answer?
Yeah, I was going to say, Sadiqa, did you want to?
Just to add, I mean, Leslie kind of, every situation is different for the most part. Especially with COVID, sometimes we become that family member, for those victims that feel alone. So, it might be a situation where the minute the family arrives, we're with the family the entire time, waiting for, updates, or waiting for their loved one to get out of surgery, or to even receive, the unfortunate news of someone not making it. But we also, unfortunately, because right now in the city, it's back to back. So, it's constantly, checking on the patient, but then also, the family, but also making sure that we're providing that service to the patient as well.
Okay. Now, is there follow-up that you all do after someone leaves the hospital? Because the trauma is probably going to be still ongoing because of how they ended up there in the first place.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the things that we created a few years ago, even prior to having the advocates, was we developed basically a collaborative of North Philadelphia-based crime victim service agencies. And so we work with, and that's how we met Leslie. She was working with Congresso at the time. So we collaborate with Congresso, Concilio, Central Division Victim Services, and Northwest Victim Services. And one of the reasons we wanted to do that is we find that a lot of organizations, not just in this city, but throughout the country, are working in silos. And we were able to bring together all of these agencies and say, instead of kind of fighting over a pie of resources, why don't we grow this pie? And why don't we bring to bear all of the opportunities and resources that we have available to better serve patients? And that's what we did. As a result, what it allows us to do is that even before the patient has been discharged from the hospital, we're able to link them with crime victim agencies who can begin helping them with things like counseling, to help them with their mental health needs, to deal with their housing needs. Many times, as you can imagine, individuals are being shot right in front of their homes or down the street from their homes. Sometimes they're being wounded by individuals who live on their same block, and it's not safe for them to go home. So we try to work with the agencies who can help try to relocate them. And again, thinking about the ways that this kind of violence can add insult to injury, it's difficult out here. And so you have people who are getting shot and will be laid up as a result of their injuries for a while. And as a function of being laid up, they're going to end up losing their jobs. So one of the things that these crime victim agencies can assist with is helping these patients recover lost wages. And as a result of these relationships, we have this kind of back and forth. It provides a conduit so that we can provide information and receive information from the patients. But what we also have is a lot of times, because our advocates are going up to visit patients once they've been admitted, they develop a rapport with these patients, who will oftentimes call back and say, hey, I'm just checking in, or I have this need. And we're able to assist them with everything from making follow-up appointments, or just sitting there and listening to them and giving them feedback, or just allowing them to give us feedback. So it's been a fantastic opportunity for us to extend these relationships that we build inside the hospital, and to hopefully better serve the people that are coming in here.
Now, if folks need to access this service when they come into the hospital, how do they, I guess, is there a number they call? Is there an email address? How do they connect with you all?
So I think, it definitely took a little bit of time to get to this point, but at this point, I think we're well known enough throughout the health system that, if almost any of our nurses or doctors recognize someone is the victim of a crime, they have our contact, or they'll contact the trauma department and who will get in touch with us, and we'll be able to go over there and render some services. I've had people call, we have one cell phone that we all pass around. It's always at the hospital. I've had people call that, that were shot at other hospitals, but they've talked to, their friends who have gotten services from Temple, and they said, I've heard about this. Can you help me? And, sure we can.
So people can come from other hospitals to Temple just to access this service?
No, not necessarily, but it was just the one time that it happened. Anyone in Pennsylvania that's a victim of a crime is eligible to receive these services. So I wasn't going to discount them just because they didn't come to this particular hospital. So I just simply connected them with, one of our agencies that they happen to live in the area of. And as far as I know, they've, started the process of receiving services.
And so, Denise, one of the benefits is that the team is literally embedded in the hospital and actually is inside the emergency department. Our office is inside, essentially right inside the metal detectors, which is right next to the ambulance bay doors. So it would be hard for us to miss a violently injured patient, even if we wanted to. But because of the relationship we have with the trauma team, if something's going on with a patient that we're, in some instances we'll approach somebody, and as you can imagine, this is a very difficult time for them, and they just don't want to talk to anybody. And, they'll kind of say thanks, but no thanks. And what will happen is they realize as they've been in the hospital for a few days that they do have these needs that are mounting, and they'll express that to one of the nurses or one of the doctors, who will then reach out to us. Or the doctors may in turn overhear something and say, hey, have you talked to somebody from the support advocates team? And they'll reach out to us. So the good news is we're here basically 24/7, so that whether you're injured at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., there's somebody here at the hospital who can provide that kind of assistance.
Well, thank you all so much for taking the time out to come and talk to our listeners today here on WURD. And that is Ian Hurst Hermans, Sadiqa Lucas, Leslie, your name isn't showing, your last name isn't showing up on
Ramirez.
Leslie Ramirez, and Scott Charles from Temple University Hospital's Trauma Victims Advocates. And we thank you all for being a part of our show today. And we're going to take a break here on The Source. You're listening to WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. I'm Denise Clay Murray, and we'll be back in a moment.
Berger Montague is a Philadelphia-based plaintiffs' class action law firm committed to helping Philadelphia's Black community. Berger Montague maintains a strong commitment to fostering diversity and equity throughout the legal community and in society in general. In 2020, Berger Montague filed a pro bono case against the IRS when they refused to send COVID-19 stimulus checks to federal benefits recipients with dependent children. Thanks to Berger Montague, people across the United States were able to obtain dependent benefit checks that they desperately needed. Berger Montague supports WURD Radio and Philadelphia's Black community. For more information about Berger Montague Law Firm, please call 215-875-3033 or email at info@bm.net.
They're back.
Everyone's ready.
Platinum Shows presents the Dell Music Center Summer Series. Sunday, August 1st, it's Jeffrey Osborne. On the wings of love. Peebo Bryson. I'm so into you. And Regina Bell. Then Sunday, August 15th, it's the Basement Party with Big Daddy Kane. Baby Cool Mo D. EPMD, Nice and Smooth. The Sugar Hill Gang with a Furious 5 featuring Grandmaster Melly Mel and Scorpio. Roxanne Shante. And Tough Crew. Then Sunday, September 5th, Labor Day weekend, it's the Party in the Park with the Whispers. Stephanie Mills.
Before.
after 7. Tickets available at the Dell box office and Ticketmaster.com. For more information, log on to ppshows.com.
Comcast is committing $1 billion to reach 50 million low-income Americans with the tools and resources they need to succeed in a digital world. Learn more at comcast.com/education.
AARP is working to protect Americans 50 plus by making sure you have the latest information about the COVID-19 vaccines and the distribution plans in Pennsylvania. Just visit aarp.org/PA vaccine to learn who's eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine, when, where, and how to get it in Philadelphia and the rest of the Commonwealth, and what you might want to discuss with your doctor. That's aarp.org/PA vaccine.
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get barrier-free COVID-19 testing and vaccination this week. Deliverance Evangelistic Church, 2001 West Lehigh Avenue, Tuesday, August 10th and Thursday, August 12th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturday, August 14th from 12 noon till 4 p.m. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And we're back with more of The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. And we're going to kind of switch gears now and talk a little bit about Black women, and specifically how we sometimes don't always take care of ourselves, which is why when Olympic gymnast Simone Biles decided that she wasn't going to participate in the Olympics because she needed to deal with her mental health, and when Naomi Osaka decided to withdraw from the French Open rather than talk to reporters due to wanting to preserve her mental health, it kind of stood out. And in addition to finding out that, you have people out there that, really don't care about whether or not you're doing okay as long as you're entertaining them, we also learned that we have a new WURD generation of Black women who have decided that, yes, I'm going to take care of myself first, and I'm not going to be apologetic at all about that. And to talk about that, I brought on a longtime friend of mine who's been in this space for a long time in terms of like counseling and wellness and helping people get through their day-to-day without feeling like they're about to go nuts. And that's Layla Dunbar Keys. And she is a counselor and wellness and mental. It's hard to describe you. I'm sorry, because you do so much. And I wanted to have this conversation with you in particular because, we don't take care of ourselves as Black women the way that we should sometimes. So talk to me a little bit about, why that is. Why is it that sometimes we tend to focus more on the needs of other people than we do ourselves? And how does that affect us mentally?
So good afternoon. Thank you, Denise. It's wonderful to share this afternoon with you. I just want to say, for clarification, I am not a mental health practitioner. I have been a sociology professor for 19 years. Wow. And so I am also a licensed spiritual life coach through an organization called the Center for Spiritual Living. And so what I do is I integrate that 20 years of experience almost in sociology and African American studies with spirituality in order to give people sage and sound advice for those things, that journey that we all have undergone, for the journey that we are all on, and for nothing specifically related to a mental health diagnosis, but for everyday feelings of disconnection and anxiety, and just not knowing how to navigate those decisions that we all have to make every day in our lives. And so to answer your question, I think that historically women have not been conditioned to take care of themselves. Our cultural conditioning is that women are to take care of everyone. Of course, we are the nurturers. We are the nurturers. We are the mothers. We are those who take care of our children, our husbands, sometimes even our husband's family, our husband's parents. That has been traditionally what our job is. And for Black women, who find ourselves at the bottom of the social hierarchy. If the gender hierarchy is male and female, then we know that male is at the top of the gender hierarchy in terms of access to resources, et cetera, traditionally. And the racial hierarchy with white being at the top and Black being at the bottom. And so if we find ourselves at the bottom of the racial hierarchy and the gender hierarchy, and oftentimes at the bottom of the social class hierarchy, and even more so, sexual orientation for so many women. When all of those things are intersected, we find ourselves dealing with many social problems that have been accumulated, and social problems that the impact of those social problems is much greater on African American women than it is on anybody. So our tradition is to turn towards religion. And certainly I have a high level of respect and regard for the way in which religion helps us navigate through everyday problems. And religion, when it is coupled with counseling, particularly if that counseling does not interfere with our values, with our morality, our spiritual foundation, then I am definitely an advocate for coupling counseling with religion in order for us to navigate our everyday problems that everybody goes through, everyday challenges that we all as humans have to navigate.
Now, just out of curiosity, how would counseling, I guess, interfere with religion? Because those two things are kind of far apart, at least in my mind.
Well, it's not that counseling would interfere with religion. It's that if the counseling and the religion are both grounded in the same value system. Now, for some people, they feel as if counseling may not be grounded in their particular spiritual or moral foundation. It doesn't necessarily have to conflict with it, but I'm just saying that if the person is Christian and that is the person's traditional way of navigating through everyday challenges, then Christian counseling may be more beneficial to that person. But if a person defines themselves as spiritual but not religious, then that person could seek out whatever type of counseling worked well for them.
Now, are you finding that younger people are a little more focused on ways to keep themselves spiritually grounded than, say, folks in my generation, who were always taught that, you have to put everything and everyone else first, you have to put your career first, you have to put all of these things first, and you're really not allowed to slow down?
I definitely do. I think that social media has definitely helped with that. Certainly, we are in a generation where people are accessing some traditional methods of spiritual growth and development, but also some new age ways of moving through life, whether that is meditation or mindfulness or yoga. And I'm saying that these are new age because that's the language that many people use, but certainly we know that these are ancient traditions, in some ways more ancient than Christianity, many pointing back to Africa, as well as many of the spiritual traditions in Asia. Yes.
So, first of all, that's probably one of the few positive things I've ever heard anyone say about social media in terms of making us, kind of think a little more about what's best for ourselves. But I guess, how do you do that? is there any, specific way you do that where you're like, okay, I'm going to think about me. I'm going to take some time out for myself. And, and how do you do that without feeling guilty, for want of a better way to put it?
That's very challenging. I mean, I think that, again, our cultural conditioning as women, as African American women specifically, is to not put ourselves first. But what I was saying about social media is it's giving people access to more knowledge and more information. And so if you can sift through those things that don't assist you, sift through those things that don't help you, then you can get to some substance. And so people are joining groups that are assisting them in meditation. People are joining groups where women are talking about self-care. There are many groups like the NAP ministry that speaks of rest and the importance of rest. There is so much modern research about sleep and the way in which sleep helps us to rejuvenate, not just in the most obvious ways, but there is healing that takes place when we are asleep. And so the most important thing is to get together with like-minded people, to get together with people who are also taking care of themselves. You find that there are many of these social groups, people are offering support. Groups like Girl Trek are offering support to people who are taking care of themselves. There are many, again, through social media, groups where Black women are running together, walking together, socializing together in myriad ways. So yeah, I think the most important thing is to find like-minded individuals to be your advocacy group, to be your support group.
Now, you yourself do something called the Soul Scholar Institute. Can you talk a little bit about that and how people can access it?
So one of the things that I think is most important is self-knowledge and self-awareness. And so right after the murder of George Floyd last summer, there was so much information about advocacy and activism that helped to change policy and practices, advocacy and activism to help to change laws and to change other people or other people who have created the system in which we live, other people that have perpetuated systemic racism. And so much of the conversation was, in my mind, it was outside conversation. And so my husband and I had been thinking about starting a community organization for quite a long time. And since everyone had become acclimated to Zoom, we thought this was the perfect opportunity to start our community organization where we would not talk so much about accessing resources that would change people who live outside of our community or outside of our culture, but to look within, to find out more information about who we are as African people, to find out more about who we are as spiritual people, and again, the integration between spirituality, culture, and history. And so we just began online and we decided to call it Soul Scholars Institute. And so we started with our Facebook group, Soul Scholars Institute on Facebook. And then we started with our study group, Soul Scholars Study Group. And then we began our Saturday Soul Series. This January, we began Saturday Soul Series, which is a monthly Saturday program that integrates spirituality, history, and culture. And we've had wonderful guests, starting with Gray Carr, who's the former chair of African American Studies at Howard University. We've had Imam Malik Mubashir, who was one of the former imams of Clara Muhammad Masjid, Philadelphia Masjid. And of course, I have been one of the speakers, as well as Marco Keys, my husband, who was speaking on the integration of spirituality and physical wellness.
Okay. Can you hold on just a second, because we got to take a short break, and I want to make sure that people can access this, because by you telling them how they can access it.
Okay,
But we'll
wonderful.
be back in a moment with more of The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray, and you're listening to WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media, and we'll be back.
Build skills needed for employment through the Philadelphia Skills Forward Initiative, a free upskilling program for workers displaced by the pandemic, those whose jobs are at risk for automation, and Black and brown workers. Complete courses focused on digital literacy, career management, and professional skills for a successful career. Get started today at chamberphl.com.
The hottest place to hang out this summer is the Dell Music Center. The lineup is lit. Thursday, August 5th, Tank, SWV, and Drew Hill. Then on August 12th, Gregory Porter, Stokely, and Leela James. Then on Thursday, August 19th, Fresh Off versus the Isley Brothers. Performing all their greatest hits with Kelly Price and Carol Riddick. Get your tickets at the Dell box office and Ticketmaster.com. This is going to be an incredible season with Tank, SWV, Drew Hill, Gregory Porter, Stokely, Leela James, Carol Riddick, Kelly Price, and the Isley Brothers. For more information, log on to the DellMusicCenter.com.
Join WURD for the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour. This year, we celebrate West Oak Lane, Mantua, North, West, and South Philly. I'm Tiffany Bacon. I'll broadcast live from a different neighborhood each Friday from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. Our next stop is North Philly at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center, 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue on Friday, August 13th. Pick up voter registration information, meet special guests, and stand with WURD and be a part of the movement to amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support and join or renew your WURD membership on site. That's the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center from 10 a.m. until 12 noon, Friday, August 13th. WURD, showing love this summer.
The WURD Radio Neighborhood Love Tour is sponsored by Comcast and supported by PICO, Keystone First, Ready Set Philly, and Hope Partnership for Education. Be there this Friday at the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour and stand with WURD Radio to amplify voices of the Black community as a digital 4WURD member for as low as $5 per month. And receive a free gift for signing up. See you on Friday and join Tiffany Bacon, 10 a.m. till noon at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center, 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue. Or visit wordradio.com. Start or renew your 4WURD membership today. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And we're back with more of The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray, and you're listening to WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're in the final hour of today's show, and I have Layla Dunbar-Keys still with us, and we're talking about how to keep yourself on an even keel, particularly, with everything going on around us. Now, you were telling me about the Soul Scholars Institute. How can people access that? How can they sign up for it?
The best way to do that is to email us at soulscholarsinstitute@gmail.com or to go to my website, Layla Dunbar Keys. Keys is KEEYS.com. So if you email us or either go to that website, then you can find updates on Soul Scholars Institute. But we are in hiatus for the summer and we're going to resume in September. So that's just important information to know.
Okay. Now, the original thing I had asked you about when I asked you to come on was to, talk about why all of a sudden it's okay for us to have these discussions about Black women's mental health based on the fact that two famous women said, hey, I'm going to take time out for me. But I guess the question that leads me to have is, Why haven't we been talking about this before now? You have a lot of people who are, a lot of Black women who are going through much, much worse. You have, particularly here in Philadelphia, a gun violence crisis that's, causing a lot of people, particularly Black women, to have to deal with the burial of their children, with having to deal with the trauma of getting hurt themselves. Why does it always require, it feels like, someone who's more in the public eye for us to be talking about the kinds of things that we should be talking about anyway?
Yeah. Everybody's feeling really disconnected, really, really disconnected. And people don't realize that they're not alone. So many of us are going through the same thing. Ever since we went into quarantine back in March 2020, people have really had to go within and deal with some of those things that are hidden, things that they have been not able to deal with for quite some time, or even some things that are lingering. So I would say that we live in a celebrity culture. We live in a celebrity culture that is really amplified by capitalism. This idea of taking cultural aspects of our culture and commodifying those aspects of our culture for capital gain, for material gain. And so we put celebrities on a pedestal, and hopefully, in the case of athletes, we like to believe that those people who are excellent, who have reached the top of their field, are the people who we celebrate, right? Because celebrate being the root of the word celebrity. So these are the people that we celebrate. Quite often we celebrate people for very random reasons, like beauty, or, those people who have gotten through the ranks for various reasons, right? But we celebrate people, and then those people get access to media. Those people get access to the networks of communication where we can see them. And so as much as there may not be an inherent fairness to that, the reality is that when celebrities are experiencing the pain that all of us experience, the trauma that all of us experience, we can see them because they have access to our social networks. And I'm all for it. I mean, if that is the way that our culture operates. And so if celebrities are going through those everyday traumas that we all go through, and that gets us to talk about it, then so be it. I am very glad that we are having this conversation. I'm very glad that Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles, because of their courage, really, I mean, their overwhelming courage to discuss their pain, and their overwhelming courage to be self-defined, to define themselves for themselves, and to not care so much what we all think, although I'm sure that there was stress on them, but to not care, to know that they had to sit back and take a moment for themselves. If that's going to make us discuss it, then I'm all for it.
And the thing that kind of bothered me about that, though, was the response to it.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know if I would want to see somebody do the kind of stuff that Simone Biles does if their head isn't in the game.
That's
because that could hurt you really bad. You could get permanently injured if you're not where you're supposed to be mentally when you're doing something like that. So the response to that kind of made me angry, because I'm like, basically we're saying this person is around for our entertainment and we're not supposed to care about them otherwise.
I think that's true, but I think that's true for so many jobs. Unfortunately, people go to work when they're sick all the time, and they're told that they don't have a strong work ethic, even if the particular sickness that they have is going to potentially cause other people to get sick. Our conditioning in this society is that we get up and we go. And so if we are conditioned by that ideology consistently, and we're able to break through it and say, enough already, I'm going to love myself, I'm going to take care of myself, I know what I need, then that is a very, very courageous person. And so I think that we need to uphold these women and look at these women as exemplars. And so many of us have taken notice. And so for all of the negative commentary, there has been, at least I've seen, much more positive commentary. And we don't have to listen to those trolls.
Well, thank you so much, Layla, for taking the time out to talk to us here on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. And I feel like I learned something. And if folks want to participate in the Soul
Scholars
and
Institute.
I knew I was going to mess this up. Soul Scholars Series.
Institute, yes. Saturday Soul Series.
Yes. Please remember that in September it comes back and you'll be able to access it. And until then, hopefully everyone will kind of take care of themselves this summer, because we need to do that. But do you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to say, because we were talking about Black women, and that sort of segued into Black culture. Mm-hmm. And I would just say, I think that at the core of it is to really know yourself, trust yourself, participate in activities with like-minded people, access those community resources that exist. And for Black men, there are so many resources. You can access the Office of Black Male Engagement. You can also access the Engaging Males of Color. And so there's so many organizations where you can start. There are community centers and churches, and again, groups on social media where you can find like-minded people. There are books that you can access, and maybe I could post that, or if you email me, that's to be a good thing. Email me at soulscholarsinstitute.com. soulscholarsinstitute@gmail.com, or layladunbarkeys@gmail.com. And I will give you access. I will give you information where you can access those resources that can help you find people who are engaged in self-healing work.
Now, are there any organizations similar to the Office of Black Male Engagement for Black women? Because, I mean, there's programs that you can access when you're younger, stuff like Teen Shop and different things. But is there anything specific to Black women that people can access?
There are definitely programs. When I think of organizations, what keeps coming to mind is Girl Trek. The Girl Trek is a national organization. It has neighborhood groups, and it has webinars and seminars. But again, more often than I have seen in the past, I see organizations popping up all over the place, or just coaches like myself who are having programs that are engaging women in mindfulness techniques and exercises. There are so many yoga practitioners and meditation practitioners. So many people I know now that are doing that. So again, if you email me, I can send you that information.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate you too, Denise. Thank you again. I hope to see you soon.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Have a great day.
You too. And that was Layla Dunbar Keys, one of my favorite people in the space of getting yourself together, and through culture and different things. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Thank you, Denise. Have a great day.
You too. You too. Now, we're going to go to a completely different place now, because that's that's the kind of day I've been having on this show, where everything has been just a beat behind. But the next person that we're going to talk to is someone that, if you've been paying attention to the, I guess, the snack world, for want of a better way to put it, in Philadelphia in recent years, chances are you have had a French toast bite. And if you haven't, you need to get some, because they're really good. And I have Sharice McGill on, the founder and CEO of Local Artisan Foods. And she is the, or as we call her sometimes, the French toast lady. And I wanted to bring her on to not only, introduce her to the folks here at URD, just in case you had not had some of her wares, but also just to talk about her latest project, which I know when you hear the words French toast and beer, you don't put them together, but they work. And we're going to talk about that. And thank you for joining us, Sharice. And most importantly, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem, Denise. You're one of my favorite people, so I'll wait for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So tell us a little bit about how you got started.
With French toast? With French toast bites?
Yes.
3 years ago, 2018, I took a big leap of faith. I had managed a local suburban farmers market for years, and during that opportunity, I saw independent food producers and independent beverage producers live their dream under a 10 by 10 white tent, the kind of farmers market. And the ones who were doing it right were earning six figures. So I said, I'm on the wrong side of this tent. And that was for 7 years. I did this. So I went back to school, enrolled in St. Joseph's MBA in food marketing program, kind of learned more about the open air food market economy, concerts, festivals, farmers markets, things of that nature. And on November 15th, 2018, I resigned from my day job, director level day job at a local college, and launched French Toast Bites in the middle of Philadelphia at the annual Christmas Village. In the 45 days of that event, my gross sales total, 75% of the annual salary I left behind, and that just kind of set the trajectory.
So how has that been going, and where can people find your French Toast Bites now?
Okay, it's been going, and French Toast has taken me places I can only have dreamed of. Right now, you can find us at Cherry Street Pier year-round. That's on Penn's Landing, right across the street from the Holiday Inn Express. We have another location on Penn's Landing at Spruce Street, Harbor Park. We're closer to the Hilton side, and we're there from May till end of September. That's more seasonal. So, and then from there, we roll right into Eastern State Penitentiary for the Halloween stuff. From there, we roll right into Christmas Village. So we're moving and shaking, Denise.
And refresh my memory, how long have you been doing this? Because I feel like I caught you very, very early in your process.
2018. That's when you caught me.
Okay.
2018 in the winter 2018.
So why French toast? Of all the things that you could have done, why French toast?
You do a little research and development, and I went to a lot of festivals, a lot of outdoor concerts where there was concessions and food trucks, and the ones that had the longest lines were the tacos and the sweets. I think, and especially in Philly, the waffle space is kind of exhausted. Like, you can get a chicken and waffle almost anywhere. You can't get super creative with pancakes. So what's left is French toast. You can never go wrong with a little cinnamon and sugar because it's so versatile. And you can smell us before you see us, and that's been a big part of the win for us.
So I guess, what has your entrepreneurial experience been like? Talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've had and how you've managed to persevere through them.
Sure.
Doing this.
There haven't really been too many challenges, to be honest with you, Denise. You just put your head down and go. Like, you just go. I perceive like success is inevitable. right? So we find ourselves in these spaces where there's already 50,000 people, 30,000 people, like at a Made in America concert. And we're back on for Made in America this year, happening Labor Day weekend. So we find ourselves on Penn's Landing where there's thousands of people that come past every day. So that's just like a natural marketing. And that's how we got so popular across the city, because we're in the places where the people are. So we really haven't found so many challenges like that, or at the onset, like early in the business, since I am a Black woman and before it was cool to work with Black folks, we've found a little bit of resistance because if it's a Black-owned business, the customers must be Black. And that just wasn't the case. We had a very diverse customer base early on. So a lot of times we would get pigeonholed and they say, oh, I don't think your demographic is a good fit. I was like, well, what do you think my demographic is? And that's where going to school comes into play, because now I know the importance of having raw data. So when I would give them our numbers, they're like, oh, okay. And then when we go kill their event and get old, young, Black, white, and Asian, they're like, oh, she really does have a diverse population. So we kind of got pigeonholed early on, but that's been shaken. And then with the pandemic, we built our business being outdoors with a lot of people. And so with the pandemic not allowing a lot of people together, that kind of threw us for a loop a little bit. But then we just found ourselves in segments of the food industry that were deemed essential. And one of those was beer. So we have a French toast beer, and another was coffee, and we have a French toast coffee. And it's sold online, sold in stores. They can get delivered on DoorDash and Uber Eats and all that fun stuff. So you just got to pivot and partner, and that's how I made it through the pandemic.
Okay, now we're about to take a break, but I definitely want to talk to you about French toast beer, because I'm going to be honest with you. When you first said to me that, oh, well, we're doing French toast beer, I'm like, where they do how is that going to work? Because you're basically combining a breakfast item with something that you're not supposed to eat for breakfast. So right. We'll talk about that when we come back from our break. But before we go to break, we have to, I'm having one of those days. We're going to give you the chance to stand with WURD, the only Black talk radio station in Pennsylvania. Now, did you know that you can join the 4WURD movement and amplify voices in the Black community as a digital member for as low as $5 per month? You visit WURDradio.com or call 215-425-7865 to become a member. We need your support, so please join or renew your 4WURD membership today. And we'll be back with more of The Source in a moment. I'm Denise Clay Murray, and you're listening to WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media.
As a father, I've done everything I can to protect my children. For my family, getting the COVID vaccine is about protecting the whole family now and in the future. That's why I'm making sure my children get the COVID vaccine and protect their health. For me, it's one less health risk to worry about. You have the power to finish this.
Visit pa.gov/COVID for more information. Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
WURD Founders Day. Don't miss our annual Founders Day live broadcast and celebration, Thursday, August 26th, honoring the life and legacy of our founder, Walter P. Lomax Jr., MD, featuring a very special broadcast of a ceremonial street naming for Dr. Lomax from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. at 1800 Wharton Street, the site of his first medical center. Hosted by Charles Ellison. The day will also include a series of virtual panels and conversations exploring health, wealth, and independent media. Start or renew your 4WURD membership on Founders Day at the special discounted rate of just $80. For more information about WURD Founders Day, visit WURDradio.com. WURD Radio Founders Day is brought to you by Pico, Keystone First, Bank of America, Ready Set Philly, Comcast, Brown's Family ShopRite, Temple University, and Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson, 2nd District. The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting WURDradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio. Messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese. Exclusive articles and multimedia content and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And we're back with more of The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray, filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders today here on The Source. And you're listening to WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. Now, if you would like to be a part of our conversation, where we're talking all things French toast with Sharice McGill of Local Artisans Foods, the call-in numbers are 215-634-8065 or toll free 866-361-0900. Now, before we went to break, I had asked you, Sharice, about French toast beer, because again, the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, how do you put those two things together? But talk to me a little bit about what made you want to put those two things together and how you managed to do it.
Okay, no problem. Well, Denise, let me just be, in the interest of full disclosure, we sell more French toast at night than we do during the day.
Oh, okay.
believe it or not. But no, so last summer, the country was turned inside out. So when we were placed, after the uprisings, after George Floyd, the whole country was turned inside out. So when we were placed on Penn's Landing at Spruce Street Harbor Park, that move made me the first Black woman to own and operate a food establishment on the popular tourist attraction. That made headlines. So it grabbed the attention of a brewer out in Doylestown. He slid in my DM on Facebook and said, hey, I think I can make a beer with your French toast. Are you interested? Denise, before I could close out of the private message box, I was up in Doylestown with my French toast bites and spice in hand so he can try it. He tried it. He said, we could definitely make a beer of this. 4 weeks later, we had a beer. He produced enough for what he thought was a month's worth of sales. Denise, it sold out in a week because me having the beer made me the first Black woman in the state of Pennsylvania with her own beer. So here we go. Second batch, it sold out in a day, 24 hours. It was supposed to sell out in a month. That was the projection. It sold out in a day. So we kind of outgrew my former brewer, and I was in a bind. Here it is Black History Month. Here it is Women's History Month. And I don't have beer for sale because it's all sold out. That's like a gift and a curse, So I reached out to some folks I know. I made friends with Dave Goldman at Urban Village down in Northern Liberties. I said, Dave, I'm in a bind. I own the name. I own the recipe. Can you help me produce this beer? And he was like, I can't. Because he had to see the sales numbers. He said, I can even help you. You need a bigger brewer. I'm like, big like who? Big like how? He said, Yard. I said, Yard's Brewing on 5th and Spring Garden? Like one of the biggest in the city? He said, yeah. He made the phone call for me. He patched me in to Trevor Pritchett. Trevor's the CEO of Yard. Told him the recipe, told him the sales volume. He said, here's what we'll do. Because we have to make at least 2,500 case sales before we can produce because they're a big brewery. I was like, uh-oh, okay. He said, if we can pre-sell 1,000, we'll produce it for you. They pre-sold 1,000 in 3 days with a mock-up can. It took another 3-4 weeks to come up with the formula, come up with the color. We went through a lot of tastings. It launched. Today, Denise, the French Toast Bites Ale is in over 100 locations in the area, including stretching down to Maryland.
Okay. So
yes, it's anytime ale. It's based on the amber ale. It's not an IPA, and you taste the cinnamon, you taste the sugar, you taste the vanilla.
So people can find it anywhere in the city? Is there any like restaurants or anything specifically where you can find it?
Oh, sure. Like a couple of restaurants, Liberty Ground in the Fairmount section is a cool new restaurant that carries it. El Camino in Northern Liberty carries it. Standard Tap carries it. Both locations on Penn's Landing at Cherry Street Pier and Spruce Street Harbor Park carry it. you can always go directly to Yards Brewing, and you can buy it by the 4-pack, by the case, or on tap. The Acme grocery stores picked it up. Giant approved to carry it. So there's not too many places you won't find it, and that's a huge blessing. Because I want to make this a thing for Black women. I want to normalize Black women having a beer, but I can only do that if I continue to put up numbers and sell it like crazy.
Now, do you see yourself as a role model? And if so, are people approaching you and saying, hey, I want to do what you do. How did you get started? Can you help me?
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't call myself a role model by any stretch of the imagination, but I would definitely call myself a real model because, there's blood, there's sweat, there's tears. I've had flattering moments. I've had less flattering moments, and maybe a trailblazer more than anything because, in the past 3 years, I racked up a lot of firsts. The first to do this, the first to do that. And there's a lot of innate pressure that comes with that. But I just want to knock down the door. I'm going to be the one to make the mistakes and have the learning curves. But I want to make it easier for the next Black woman to have a space on Penn's Landing, for the next Black woman to have a beer, for the next Black woman because we have another product coming out that will make me the first in the fall, and I'll make sure you're one of the first folks to know about that. So I just want to keep knocking down these doors. And going to school, I'll be honest, it really helps because a lot of people are like, you're an entrepreneur. Why do you need to go back to school? Denise, everybody and their mom knows I didn't need to go to get an MBA and pay $60,000 for a degree to sell French toast. But I did have to go back to make it an enterprise. I did, with the knowledge I had and the skills that I had, it would always remain a small business. But to diversify and to find ourselves in the beer space, to find ourselves in the coffee space, to find ourselves in places that a lot of Black women aren't finding themselves, I knew I had to be equipped with the education to do so, for people to even take me seriously. Because I'm of the firm belief that when you find successful Black women, there's an assumption of incompetency. And it's always qualified or pre-qualified in how a certain success came about. So I want to just knock all of that out and say, no, I have a master's of business administration and food marketing. This isn't like I didn't get lucky. This is very deliberate. This is very planned out, very intentional.
So how, you do all of these different shows and different things. How would just normal people who want you to participate in an event that they're doing, how would they connect with you to get you to come out?
You can hit me on Instagram. Our Instagram is local with a K, LOKAL, Artisan Food. I control the social media, so I get the messages. You can shoot me an email, and that's at hello@localartisanfoods.com. I'm very accessible, Denise, and I do that deliberately also as well. And at the top of 2022, I will host a 4-week workshop for folks who want to grow their food business.
Oh,
because I do get a lot of requests and questions, and I don't have, this is not enough time in the day to run a business with 2 locations and individually mentor or help. But if you do it in like a workshop, small group setting, I can make that happen.
Okay. And the website is the best way for people to reach you and to access your content. And what else can they get in addition to the beer and the French toast bites themselves?
Oh, sure. We have our traditional French toast bites. You can hook them up with unlimited toppings. You can put some whipped cream on there. We have fresh berries, maple syrup, chocolate syrup, caramel syrup. We have a vegan version with which we make with almond milk and Just Egg, the brand. It's an egg replacer. We have bacon on the stick. We have our coffee. I'll tell you, Denise, I didn't see it coming. Our coffee partners told us, shout out to Bean, is that you're going to sell a lot of cold brew. I'm like, no. Denise, we sell so much French toast, cold coffee at Penn's Landing. It's not even funny. It's hard to even keep 5-10 gallons in stock for the weekend. So we're always planning ahead for that. That's just something I didn't see coming, but definitely a big, huge blessing that it did come.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sharice. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and talk to our listeners about what it is you do and, how you do it and just what you've been able to accomplish with French toast, which is something that
Thank you,
most
Denise.
that most people don't really think about. But thank you so much. I really
No
appreciate it.
problem.
And if you get a chance to go to Cherry Street Pier, which is one of the locations where you can find French toast bites, take a moment, go do that, especially since it's going to be, kind of hot this weekend and you might be walking along Penn's Landing looking for something to do. You can grab some French toast bites and maybe a beer and have a good time that way. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
No problem, Denise. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. No problem. And we are nearing the home stretch of the source for this week. It's been, for those of you who know me, it's been a while since I've done live radio. So I really appreciate the fact that we had people call in and different things it's been really fun. And I wanted to kind of leave the phones open for you to have your say. We've had a lot of guests come on today. Councilwoman Helen Ginn was talking about the eviction crisis. We had Scott Charles and the folks from the Temple University Trauma Advocates Program talking about how they're trying to help people get through instances of violence against them, either through gun violence or getting hit by a car, which, yes, is a form of violence, but it's not what you normally think about when you think about trauma. Yeah, but we should, because trauma is universal in that regard. And also Layla Dunbar Keys, who was talking to us about self-care and mental health and how to help and how to be strong enough to take some time out for yourself. And also Sharice McGill of Local Artisan Foods talking to us about how she took something that you all probably have made at home at one time or another and turned it into a business, turned it into something entrepreneurial that allowed her to live out her dreams. So if you would like to join the conversation, and I hope you will, because I'd rather hear from you, the listener, than to hear myself talk. Please feel free to call in at 215. And I keep doing it. This has been, the show, folks, where I was the most prepared and everything just kind of blanked out. It's like if you're taking a test in school and you studied really, really hard and you find that you overstudied a little bit. If you want to call in, the call-in numbers are 215-634-8065. Or if you're calling toll-free from anywhere other than Philadelphia, it's 866-361-0900. And let me throw a couple of things out for us to talk about as we get ready to close the show. There's been a lot that's been happening in the news. Some of it we've talked about, some of it we haven't, but probably the thing that folks really need to pay the most attention to right now, the census numbers were just released. Now, in 2020, we had a census with everything else going on in terms of the pandemic and gun violence and different things here in the city. You might have forgotten that we had a census that we were doing. But the census was being done, and for various reasons, people are kind of concerned about how it's going to turn out, because let's be completely honest here. It was being done with an administration that didn't necessarily care about making sure it was done correctly. And because of that, the undercount that usually happens with the census, folks are concerned is going to be even more of an undercount than usual. And how does that affect you? How that affects you is the census is how things like how much congressional representation you get in the House of Representatives is determined. It determines resources. Like we've been talking a lot about educational funding today. And one of the things that the census impacts is where resources for education go. If folks don't think that there are enough people that are going to utilize a given resource, they're going to give that resource to someone else. And chances are, if Philadelphia was really, really badly undercounted, the resources that we need to make sure that our kids get the education they deserve may not be there. Another thing that the census impacts is redistricting, like if they're going to take away a congressional representative from you, where the population is determines where that representation is taken away from. And if you're a city like Philadelphia and you're getting smaller, that means that you may lose one of your members of the House, which means that's an advocate that you no longer have. And it also have to look at where our population grew, because Philadelphia's population grew by 77,791 people, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer. And we need to look at where that population growth came from. The growth in the Hispanic population, the non-Hispanic Asian population, and the multicultural population went up. That's where a lot of this population growth from the census in Philly came from. Now, where it went down was non-Hispanic, Black, and white. And, we kind of have to ask ourselves, what does that mean in terms of how the city governs itself? We have a few elections coming up. In 2023, we decide we vote for a new mayor. We also have city council elections coming up, and redistricting also affects council seats. So, we really need to pay attention to these numbers when it comes to the census, and we kind of need to ask ourselves, what does this mean for us, not only as a community, but as not just as a city, but also as individual communities? Because let's face it, we may live together as a city, but the bottom line is each community is looking to make sure that it has what it needs to do the best for its people. And there's also something that I've been meaning to kind of correct folks on that happened in the first hour when we talked about when we had Councilwoman Gim on and folks were talking about nuisance businesses and different things and what could be done to fix them. There's a big difference between what a council person at large can do versus a district council person. Now, I know all of you listen to City Council Live here on WURD every week, and you probably can understand this, but I feel like I need to, bring it back up a little bit. But we're also about to have to go to a break, and I'll come back after the break and explain the difference between an at-large council person, a district council person, and who can actually do what in those instances. So we'll be back in a moment. I'm Denise Clay Murray. This is WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media, and we'll be right back.
In Philly, COVID-19 vaccines are safe, free, and effective. It protects you from contracting the COVID-19 virus. Vaccines do not change your DNA or contain microchips. Caribbean people are not immune to the deadly virus without COVID-19 vaccine shots, and it does not affect your immigration status. Join us for our back-to-school COVID-19 vaccination resource fair on Saturday, August 21st from 11 to 3 p.m. at Sturgis Recreation Center in Alany. Free food, school supplies, and vaccines. Visit www.caribbeancommunityinphiladelphia.com, Facebook or Instagram page.
The Black Words Book Club. Word Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The Black Words book for September is Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America by Keith Boykin. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, September 14th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for Word members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And we're back with the final 15 minutes of The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray, and you're listening to me on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. And on line 1, we have Brother X from Chicago. Thank you for calling.
Well, thank you for taking this call, Queen Sister. Is this your last week?
Well, this is my last day for this week. I'll be back on filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders at the end of the month.
Oh, you'll be back next week.
Well, no, actually at the end of the month, the 30th and 31st.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to hear. You know, it's good to hear you.
Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you for being there. I'll call back one day and talk about the 2 Blue Club Klansmen that were shot in Chicago. It's a very telling story, but it talks a lot about the violence we have going all over the neighborhood. I know you look so young. You don't get the AARP magazine, do you?
Believe it or not, sir, yes, I do.
Okay, on the front cover of the AARP magazine for June and July, they have a big photo of this actor, McConaughey, Matthew McConaughey. But I want people to look up in the right-hand corner of the cover page. They have about a 1-inch photo of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I just want to point out this subtle racism that we deal with every day. Now, here's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a legend. The man has worked hard. He's an activist. He supports causes. They could not give Kareem Abdul-Jabbar the cover photo on that magazine. Then bring Matthew McConaughey back maybe next time. They refuse to recognize him in that way. And that's just another example of why so many people are so skeptical of the vaccine, because they see this subtle racism over and over and over. So when the great white father comes and tells him to take this, Willie, take that, Betty, then people are suspicious. And we can understand that. Just think about that. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a legend. Never had no trouble in his life, practiced hard. They even changed the rules in the game to hold him back. The white man said, no more dunking. We stopping that mess. So when Kareem went to the sky hook, he'll just lay it up. But they could not recognize him on an AARP magazine who's supposed to be so right and so righteous. They could not give him that cover just for once. And I just want the people to just look at that. I mean, let's look at this subtle racism just coming from all sides. Now, I'm going to let you go, and one day I'm going to call and talk about these shootings of two Blue Club Klansmen in Chicago. And just keep in mind, these young people, they are being set up. They being set up for fail, set up for violence, set up to shoot out with somebody, and the system don't want to deal with that. They just want to paint these people as some crazy criminal when they set them up to do and be exactly where they are. But I'll call you back with that and tell you about that story.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for being there.
Calling.
Much love.
Thank you for calling. Okay. I don't know how we're going to top that, but I guess what I wanted to explain before we get off the air is the difference between council at large and district council in terms of handling certain issues. First of all, nothing gets passed, nothing gets built, nothing gets done in any one city council district without the district council person deciding that they're going to introduce the legislation to allow it to happen. While at-large council people can introduce legislation to do various things, they can't really control a district. It's nice that there are council people at large that are taking on the problem of nuisance bars or nuisance businesses and stuff. But in the end, it's going to have to be the person that actually does it, who actually introduces the legislation, is going to have to be a district council person. So while I can understand that the caller that was talking about Asian nuisance businesses might think that the person to direct that particular issue toward is Councilwoman Gim because she is Asian, that's not the way this works, because she's a at-large council person, which means that if there's anything going on in a district that she wants to tackle, she's got to tackle it through the district council person. She can't do it herself. She can't introduce any legislation that pertains to any particular district. That's got to come from the district council person. Now, the district council people are the ones that you really should go to for that. And a lot of the district council people have been working on these issues in some cases for years. I remember before the pandemic, they had a public hearing on whether or not businesses should be allowed to put plexiglass up between that separates them and the customer in various stores. And while the legislation to get that done didn't pass, I believe it was Cindy Bass that introduced it. It was a district council issue, and the district council person had to handle it. And we have a call on line one. It's Vincent from Germantown. Welcome to The Source, Vincent.
I want to congratulate you, Denise, for a fantastic show
thank you.
WURD. I just wanted to call to say it's great to hear you back on the air, and it's just lovely to have you on. That's all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's really kind.
Have a wonderful day.
You do the same. Okay. Well, I'm going to be wrapping up my time here today. And I just want to say that I really appreciate the folks at WURD for, giving me the chance to come on and help, go through various issues with you all and take your calls and different things. And it's actually been really kind of cool. It's been a while since I've been here as a host. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, but it's been, a pretty good experience. And I will be back here filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders on the 30th and 31st of August. So if there's any topics that you think I should take up around that time, or specifically, if you know anyone who is an entrepreneur, particularly a food entrepreneur here in Philadelphia that might, particularly a Black food entrepreneur that might deserve their moment in the sun, please email me. I'm at Denise the Writer One. That's Denisethewriter. That's all one word with the number one at gmail.com. I love to hear those kinds of stories. I want to bring those kinds of stories out because one of the industries that got beaten down the most by the pandemic was the hospitality industry. And of the hospitality industry, people who got beat down the most within that sector were Black-owned businesses. And if there are Black-owned businesses that are, bringing up the kinds of things that allow you to have a nice night out or have something new to try or whatever, I want to make sure that I can at least get them on while I'm here. But again, I thank you all for your time and for your patience and for joining me the 3 days I've been on. And a big shout out to Program Director Tiffany Bacon for allowing me to come on, and to Sarah Lomax Reese and the rest of the WURD family. And until August 30th, where I will see you again at 1:00 for The Source. I'm Denise Clay Murray. Please stay tuned for Nick Taliaferro and the Evening Word. And this is just my own, blatant family plug. If you're looking for something to listen to on Saturday, please catch my husband, Chris Murray, and the Chris Murray Report, where you can get coverage of the Eagles preseason game that's going on right now, or that will be going on later on tonight, and maybe even the Phillies, who are playing right now and are actually not blowing a lead. I'm impressed. Until then, I'll see you next time, and take care of yourselves and continue to listen to WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. Until then, see you later.